Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 733, March the 26th, 2019, Tuesday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, we have a lot to get to today, and including announcing the dumbass of the week, the winner. So let's get to the news and we'll get to that at the end of the video. Okay, so the Southern District of New York has announced criminal charges against creepy porn lawyer Michael Avenatti for attempting to extract more than $20 million in payments from the Nike Corporation by threatening to use his ability to garner publicity to inflict substantial financial and reputational harm on the company if his demands were not met. The Jesse Jackson tactic. It worked for Jesse, but it didn't work for Avenatti, but he's got a lot of problems. The counts against Avenatti include conspiracy to transmit interstate communications with intent to extort, conspiracy to commit extortion, and more. His lawyer, Mark Geragos, has also been named as a co-conspirator. Also, at the same time, the U.S. Attorney in Los Angeles has filed a separate criminal complaint that Avenatti embezzled a client's money to pay his own expenses and cover debts, and he defrauded a bank using a phony tax return. Also, let's not forget that just a week ago, he filed bankruptcy for the second time. He also, just a week before that, Stormy Saggy Daniels fired him as her lawyer. So it's a bad couple of weeks for the creepy porn lawyer, wouldn't you say? But when you talk about the Trump curse, oh man. And it wasn't that long ago that he did a tweet where he said that by Christmas time, Don Jr. will be in jail. So I'm pretty sure Don Jr. has probably already worked that out on Twitter. Just have to go look it up. But it should be noted that both Avenatti and this nut Geragos, they were both CNN legal contributors. In fact, there was a period, a 10-week period on CNN where Avenatti appeared over 100 times in 10 weeks. And of course, Geragos has been all over CNN because he was the lawyer for Jussie Smollett. Jussie Smollett. I think Jussie needs a new lawyer. What do you think? Because he's going to be in jail. You know, it's bad news when your lawyer can't represent you because he's in jail. Not only that, Avenatti's on a roll. He's been arrested 2 times in 2 weeks. He was slapped in handcuffs last week in Los Angeles, and this week they slapped the handcuffs on him in New York. And they also slapped the handcuffs on Geragos, both of them. So yeah, these guys got physically handcuffed and thrown in a police car and taken to jail. And they have a lot of problems, both of those guys, and couldn't happen to a couple of creepier lawyers than these guys. So there you go, the Trump curse. Man, oh man, you do not want to be on the receiving end of the Trump curse because it is heavy duty. Heartache. Avenatti, Geragos, right along with their friends over at CNN, MSNBC, and all the rest, they're all in the Hurt Locker. The Hurt Locker. Well. What do we have here? Mr. Potato Head, John Brennan, tells the Morning Joe and Mika that he was relieved by the Attorney General's summary of the Mueller report, admitting the findings presented less than he anticipated in terms of criminal activity. He says he doesn't know if he received bad information, and he suspected that there was more there than there actually was. Really, Mr. Potato Head? You received bad information? From who? Maybe someone will ask you that when you're seated in front of a federal grand jury, when you're on your way to prison, Mr. Potato Head. Lawyer up, asshole. Lawyer up. Well, it looks like the Democrats, the good old commie-crats, they want to see all the evidence. They want to see the full Mueller report. They want to see every single bit of it. Lots of love for that, because guess what? You can't see all of it. And they know that. You can't see anything that was grand jury testimony. You can't see anything about anyone who was not indicted. They're going to get very, very little. They can shout and scream and holler and throw a temper tantrum all they want. They can try to subpoena Barr or Uncle Bob the Executioner. They can bring these guys in, and they're not going to get jack. They're not going to get jack because these guys know the law. They know the special counsel law, and they know there's certain things that they will release and certain things they won't release. So, yeah, they want to see all the evidence. Everybody wants to see all the evidence. Quite honestly, Uncle Bob the Executioner states in his report that the Russians did hack the DNC. Well, I don't believe it. I want to see that evidence. I want to see the evidence that Uncle Bob has. I want to see the investigation that he did that the Russians hacked the DNC. I'd love to see that evidence. Unfortunately, we can't because they're going to say it's classified and therefore you can't see it. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people want to see all the evidence. That's why Republicans and the president and everyone else said, yeah, let's get the entire report completely unredacted. Let's get every single bit of evidence. Let's get every witness testimony. Let's get everything that they learned about everything, every document from every wiretap, from every witness testimony. Let's get it all. We'd all love it. It's not going to happen. It's not the way it works. So the Dems are going to get bupkis. That's what they're going to get. They can cry and scream and throw temper tantrums all they want. But if, in fact, they should succeed, and they won't, but if they should, it's not going to happen, but if it should, in a magical world, then I would love to see the evidence that Uncle Bob has that the Russians hacked the DNC, because I don't believe they did. I don't believe they had any motive to do it. I really don't. I believe that the information that was given to WikiLeaks came to them from someone on the inside at the DNC. And I believe it was likely Seth Rich. That's just my opinion. I mean, we have a problem here. It appears, from what we've learned, we don't have 100% sure, but it appears that Uncle Bob never interviewed Julian Assange. Well, Julian Assange is the guy who would know, and he says it was not the Russians, nor was it the Chinese, nor was it any government that gave him the WikiLeaks, the stuff, the DNC, and the Podesta emails. He says it was not any government agency or any country or whatever. That's what Julian Assange says. And it appears that they didn't interview him. If I were doing this investigation, I would have interviewed Assange. And you know what? I bet you Assange and people at WikiLeaks could probably prove that it was not Russians or any foreign government that gave them that information. And they could probably do it without even disclosing the source of who did. They just never really been given the opportunity. I mean, I would love someday to see Julian Assange just release that information and just lay it all out, provide the information, and tell us who it was. Talk about blowing this thing wide open. I mean, Julian Assange, man, he holds the keys. But, he won't give up the source. And so I don't know what's going on with that. But anyway, I believe Assange more than I believe CrowdStrike, the DNC, and Uncle Bob. Crazy Dems. Well, here we go. The judge has authorized Judicial Watch to depose Ben Rhodes in person after he defied a court order to answer written questions under oath. So about, not even 2 or 3 videos ago, I reported to you that the judge had granted Judicial Watch the ability to depose about, 24 people. Most of them are going to have to do personal depositions, but there was several high-ranking Obama administration officials, which the court said, okay, well, you can't depose these people personally, but you can depose them with a letter. They do have to answer your questions in a letter. Well, Ben Rhodes decided that he was not going to follow the judge's order and fill out the written questionnaire for Judicial Watch. And so Judicial Watch went to court and said, hey, he's defying the court order. And so the judge said, okay, he's defying the court order. Okay, well, not only does he have to do the written deposition, but he's now going to have to sit for a in-person deposition with Judicial Watch. And if he doesn't, he's going to jail. Sorry, it's all coming undone because Ben Rhodes, Ben Rhodes is a critical player in all this because he is like the conduit between Obama, his national security team, which would have been Susan Rice, his attorney general, and all those people. He was like the, Ben Rhodes is like the guy that you go to, who then goes to the president. He was the guy that if you want to get something to Obama from the State Department or wherever, Ben Rhodes is the guy that you go to, and he passes it on to the president. And if the president wants to see that person, then he arranges that. But Ben Rhodes, everything went through Ben Rhodes. Ben Rhodes knew everything that was going on. He knew about it. That's why he is such a key witness. He's got a lot. Believe me, Ben Rhodes is one of those people that should be getting fitted for an orange jumpsuit. He too has a lot of problems. Most of them legal, most of them criminal. We have Lindsey Graham doing a press conference after today, or I should say on Monday, where he addressed the media, and it was about a half an hour press conference. He spent 2/3 of that time talking about what happens next. And he's talking about these investigations he's going to do. Unfortunately, Lindsey did say that he does agree that the Russians hacked the DNC. I think Lindsey's wrong on that, but he's a Russiophobe, so it doesn't surprise me. But he also made it perfectly clear that he is going to speak with Attorney General Barr, and that he is going to strongly advocate for Barr to appoint a special counsel. It's coming. Something is coming. And I believe it's already started. I don't know how many of you guys saw the video. The video of Jerry Nadler. This guy should never do a public press conference, right? Well, he does a public press conference, and it appeared to be outdoors. And so he's doing this press conference talking about how he's going to go ahead and pursue obstruction anyway and all this kind of stuff. And the whole time that he's trying to give his little press conference, you got somebody behind him just heckling the hell out of him. And it's really irritating Nadler. I mean, it actually causes Nadler to lose his train of thought on a couple of occasions. And the guy is back there screaming. He's back there screaming, you guys are a bunch of losers. Dirtbags. Good job. The guy was heckling him the whole time, and Nadler was getting pissed. A couple times he stopped and paused. Once he completely lost train of thought. I mean, the heckler was really rattling him. If you haven't seen Jerry Nadler being heckled in his little press conference, you got to see it. It's quite funny to watch him get completely blown off his train of thought. It's very funny. And, of course, the thing about this is, and the reason why this is so ridiculous is that Nadler, and he should know this, he's a lawyer, Nadler and Schiff and Cummings and all the rest of these goofy, crazy commie-crats, they're out there now saying, well, Trump wasn't exonerated by Mueller from obstruction. That was left up to Barr, and Barr decided, but Barr, that's a Trump appointee, and, can't trust Barr. So Trump has not been cleared of obstruction, and so it's going to be our job to dig into this obstruction and find out, what's going on with all that. Well, it was a very simple decision for Barr and Rodenstein, by the way, who signed off on it, to the commie-crats who can't seem to lock onto this very simple concept. You cannot have obstruction unless you have an underlying crime. If there is no underlying crime, then what can you possibly be obstructing? And the answer is nothing. There was no underlying crime. Therefore, it was real simple for Barr and Rodenstein to say, well, there's no underlying crime. Of course, there could not be. You could not make a case for obstruction if you did not have an underlying crime. No crime, no reason to obstruct. And even if you tried to obstruct, there was no underlying crime, so it could not be prosecuted. This is all very simple. This is why I said that Uncle Bob should be Dumbass of the Week, because he left that question open. When in fact he says there was no predicate crime, but then he says, but I don't know about the obstruction. Well, if there was no damn crime, there could not be obstruction. Even if there was obstruction, there couldn't be obstruction. Even if he tried to obstruct, you couldn't make the case in court. You couldn't prove the case in court. You could have the guy admitting that he obstructed. Yeah, hell yeah, I tried to obstruct. I tried to obstruct every day I could. But if you have no underlying crime, when you get into court, it's thrown out. There has to be an underlying crime to get the obstruction. The obstruction happens after the crime. It's the crime that you tried to obstruct. If there was no crime, you can't obstruct. It's very simple. Unless you're a dimwit like Uncle Bob. Uncle Bob was just doing what he was paid to do. give the Democrats something, and he couldn't give them anything. So this is the best he could do, was to destroy his reputation and make himself look like a fool and a corrupt son of a bitch who also better lawyer up. These people are nuts. It's Trump derangement syndrome. It's what it is. So yeah, my message to Uncle Bob the Executioner and all these commie-crats and all these other people, hey, guess what? What comes around goes around. Yes, it does. You know, these people, the commie-crats and the Hollywood nutcases, the left-wing liberals, and all this whole group, the left-wing media, the whole group of them, they kind of remind me of those Japanese soldiers in World War II who hid out in those caves and stayed hiding out in those caves in the Pacific Islands for 30 to 40 years after the war was over. After the war was over, they refused to surrender, even 30 or 40 years after the war was over, even after their own damn country had surrendered. They still refused to surrender. They're still running around on this island, hiding out in these caves, thinking, you know, that I'm not going to surrender. Yeah, well, you just spent your entire life living in a damn cave, and the thing's been over for 30 or 40 years. And you did surrender, by the way. That's what the commie-crats are. They don't get it. They don't get it. It's over. Unbelievable. Let's just have fun. I know everybody here's stocked up on popcorn, right? Because we're going to have a hell of a good time watching these people melt down over the next 2 years. And then Trump's going to win in a landslide. And in the process of doing that, all these perps, a couple dozen of them, they're going to jail. Well, yeah, we haven't talked much about Brexit. Fortunately, we do have Mike G. I believe it's G. It might be G, but I think it's G. Mike G. What the hell was that? So, anyway, we do have Mike who keeps us updated on the comment section, what's going on Brexit. I follow it pretty closely myself. I get Brexit news every day. And I typically get most of my Brexit news from the Duran. But there's other good sources as well. But I watch the Duran probably almost every day on their Brexit coverage. So, yeah, I am keeping up. It's just we have so many things going on here. We don't have very much time to talk about Brexit. But I know there's a lot of people here on this channel that, of course, are emotionally involved and wrapped up in Brexit because we all were when they had the vote. And we remember what that was like. We remember how happy we were that day that they voted to leave the EU, and how, you know, I was elated, man. I mean, I thought this was great, and it really set the stage for, I think, in a lot of ways, for Trump. And so, you know, we all felt so good about it. And of course, now here we are, you know, a couple years down the road, and the people who voted for Brexit still can't get it. And we've seen the incompetency and the stupidity and the recklessness of the Theresa May government. Who she was never for Brexit in the first place. She was a Remainer from the beginning. She's done everything she could to sabotage Brexit, right along with a lot of conservatives and liberals and everything else over there in the UK. So they've had these two votes. Both of them failed by historic margins. So then they have another vote, the third vote. Now, this particular vote, I knew was going to fail as well. But at this point, what we're looking at here is that probably because this vote, this third time, has failed, I don't see any way at this point that they avoid hard Brexit, which, in my opinion, of the options that are left for them, hard Brexit's probably the best. And it's not really a good option. I mean, it's not going to be great. Hard Brexit's not going to be great, but it will get them out of the damn EU. They're going to obviously pay a price for it, and it's going to be messy. It's going to cause some issues. I don't see, you know, catastrophic things happening. I don't see the pound tanking or anything else. I mean, I think they may have about a year or two. It could be kind of rough, but the long term, 2, 3, 4, 5 years out from now, the best thing that ever happened to the UK will have been leaving the EU. And believe me, there's going to be other countries following them, and the EU is not long for this world anyway. But yeah, a lot of things really breaking. So we're going to be watching what happens. I guess there's maybe 4 days until we hit the hard Brexit date. So I imagine I'm not in the UK getting the updated news like Mike is, probably on the hour, every hour. But I know that there's deals they're trying to cut deals right now behind the scenes. They're trying to find some way to try to get this. I guess they're trying to get an extension, but they can't extend beyond the 23rd of May, because then you would have EU parliamentary elections, and the EU folks do not want the UK to be able to send more MPs. They certainly don't want Farage back. Okay, so they don't really want the UK back in the European Parliament, especially if they're going to be in some sort of a Brexit. So that's what's kind of pushing everything to where it is now. So we'll just be watching, obviously on the 29th. We'll see what happens. But it seems to me that if they couldn't find a solution in 2 years or almost 3 years, they could not find a solution to how to Brexit gracefully, then what makes us think that they're going to find the solution in 4 days? I don't see how it happens. So I'm not really into making a lot of predictions, but it looks to me like I don't see how they avoid a hard Brexit on the 29th. That's, 4 days from now? And I suspect if that happens, if the Brexit happens, hard Brexit on the 29th, I suspect that Theresa May will be gone shortly thereafter, most likely would resign. Actually, I'm surprised that she hadn't resigned already. I mean, after that first vote, the historic loss, I mean, it was by a landslide loss. Normally, when a prime minister loses a vote that bad, they get the no confidence vote and they resign. But she stuck around to have another vote, a second vote, which she didn't get beat as bad as she did the first time, but it was still, again, of historic proportions. And then we have this third vote, and it failed. So I just don't see how this thing, I just don't see how they avoid a hard Brexit at this point. And again, it's not the best case scenario. It's not how it should have happened. But of the three options that I see that they're looking at, it's probably the best of the three options. The bottom line, it gets them out of the EU. That's what it does. And hopefully that will result in May leaving. Hopefully they'll have elections. They'll get a pro-Brexit PM. And hopefully the elections coming up, the Brexit Party will have a huge win. And that's, I think, what my hopes are. So to all of those of you who are, of course, watch this channel and are over in the UK, we're all pulling for you. Hang in there. Could be some rough times there if you have that hard Brexit. But ultimately, know this: that on the other side of it, in 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, it's going to be the best thing that you ever did. And I can assure you that as far as trade and things and such like that, yeah, if the EU wants to give you guys a rough time about trade and all that, tell them to kiss your ass. Because you know what? Trump in the US is a bigger market than the EU. We are a bigger market than the EU. We would love to have free, open, fair trade with the UK. We would love to sign a bunch of new trade deals. Hey, there's a lot of things that we can do trade with on the UK, and in fact, we could start importing a lot of cars over there, and the Brits could start importing cars here, and we could actually do great harm to the German market. So I mean, there's other ways that if the EU wants to play hardball and poke a finger in the eye of the citizens of the UK, if they want to play that game, they're playing with the wrong people, because the UK is still the most powerful economy in Western Europe. I think even more powerful than Germany. And of course, with the US on their side as a trading partner, we could bring a lot of pain to the EU, and Trump will do it. He absolutely will do it. So. Don't worry, folks, over in the UK. We got your back. We've got your back, my friends. We've got something for the Eurocrats if they want to fuck with you. I shouldn't say that word. If they want to mess with you, we've got something for them. Profanity alert. Now, let's get to Dumbass of the Week. Very, very tough. The week started out kind of slow. But boy, did it pick up steam in the last 2 days, and especially today, the last day of voting, with Comey sending out that tweet, the tall tree tweet, and then Lindsey Graham's response. Comey sends out the tweet. He's standing there with all these tall trees. So many questions, and Lindsey Graham's like tweets back, "Yeah, you're right. I have a lot of questions too. I look forward to seeing you." Totally owned Comey, man. That was great. That was great. Well done, Lindsey Graham. Yeah, Comey's got a lot of problems, my friends. A lot of problems and a lot of questions to answer. He's perjured himself so many times. I mean, the amount of crimes and horrible things that he did, illegal things that he did. I mean, he has got a lot of problems. And he's going to need a good lawyer. And I'm pretty sure it won't be Mr. Avenatti, because he's got problems of his own. Or Mr. Gorgos. Can't do a lot for you when he's in jail. So, let's go through Dumbass of the Week. We have Giovanni. He went with Rachel Madcow because our president didn't commit treason. Exactly. This is so mind-boggling. Here we have Madcow and all these left-wing commie-crat journalists crying and sad because the president was not found guilty of treason. That tells you how bad it is. They would have been ecstatic, overjoyed if our president would have been found guilty of treason. Do you know how sick in the mind that you have to be? Do you know how sick in the mind that you have to be to wish that? So you're very dead on, Giovanni. Rachel Madcow and her friends are nuts and very, very worthy of Dumbass of the Week. Rocker Mom went with Uncle Bob, the executioner. That was my pick too. Kilda went with Jacinda Ardern. Oh boy, yeah, and she's even doubling down. Just from what things we talked about the day I talked about her, she's added some more craziness to it. So she certainly is a hell of a strong contender for Dumbass of the Week. And Kilda also is number 2. She went with Madcow. And number 3, the dishonorable James Comey. Patty, she went with Uncle Bob, the executioner. And she's usually right. Patty normally nails it. Comey, number 2. Very strong number 2. That was my 1 and 2. Mueller and Comey in that order. And the bug-eyed fool, Adam Schiff. Yep. Right on, Patty. Then we had Rocky. He's still hanging in there with Fox. Fox News for hiring Donna Brazile and Big Ears Eddie Munster Ryan. Yeah, certainly. Very good. Denise went with Ocasio-Cortez, the wild-eyed commie. She's been a little bit overshadowed this week, but she's still been saying and doing stupid things. It's just that she's had so much fierce competition this week. So much fierce competition. But she made it on the board, thanks to Denise. Well done, Denise. Thank you for your contribution. Jeanette, she went with Uncle Bob, the executioner, along with Jerry Nadler. You got to see his video. Jeanette, check out the video of Nadler getting heckled. And Comey. Boy, that's 3 strong picks right there, is it not? Mueller, Nadler, and Comey. Joey. Joey, I'm not sure I even understand this, but I'll tell you what Joey wants for Dumbass of the Week. Whoever nominated Big Balls for the Nobel Prize. I probably missed that one in the news somewhere, but I'll try to find it. Thanks a lot, Joey. My man up in just north of me here in Ohio. He's my bud. And of course, Mike, our good friend across the pond over in the UK, he went with Uncle Bob the Executioner. Thanks so much, Mike. Douglas. Well, Douglas, you always give me like 3 or 4 different posts and a different Dumbass of the Week nominee on every one. I have to decide which one of those I'm going to go with. But anyway, Douglas, I really liked his pick for Dumbass of the Week this week. And because he picked Barbara Streisand. And it's funny because I read the story. I'm sure many of you did, but I never had the time to comment on it on one of my videos. But yeah, Barbara Streisand, really 2 stupid comments. The first stupid comment she commented on was making the case for Michael Jackson only having to, deal with his sexual needs in terms of his molesting young children, mostly boys, I assume. But then she came out and said something even stupider, which is, I think she came out and said something like, well, he never killed anybody. I mean, Streisand, her brain's gone, by the way. Her brain is gone, buddy. There ain't nothing going on there. Too much catnip. Too much catnip. Thank you so much, Douglas. Mrs. Miggins. She went with the dishonorable James Comey. Based on the tree pick. So many questions. Yes, indeed. Mrs. Miggins. Gene, he went with Uncle Bob. You're absolutely correct, Gene. Uncle Bob. Everybody likes Uncle Bob this week for Dumbass of the Week. I mean, how could you not? The Dishonorable James Comey, let's see, who was that? I forgot to write down her name. I'm very, very sorry. But someone else picked Comey, and also CNN and MSNBC. Let's see, we had Oregon. And Oregon went with Uncle Bob, along with Peter the Bug-Eyed Fool, or Adam the Bug-Eyed Fool Schiff, along with Rachel Mad Cow. That's a strong selection right there. For Oregon, Uncle Bob, the Bug-Eyed Fool, and Mad Cow. That's a very, very strong 1-2-3 lineup right there. That's like the 61 Yankees or the 70 Reds. Let's see. Larry, my good friend Larry, again, just a little north of me here in Ohio. Great musician. Check out Larry's music videos. They're on YouTube. Very, very entertaining. Very, very talented man. Larry went with the press. Yeah, absolutely. The entire corrupt media. And boy, do they have egg on their face. And boy, do they look stupid. I mean, absolutely incredible. And they're doubling down. They literally cannot accept it. But, I mean, they should all have come out and made an apology. But, yeah, you're right, Larry. These people got egg on their face, and they can't seem to wipe it off. Peter, my good friend Peter, up in the great Northwest, he went with Uncle Bob, Comey, and the wild-eyed commie, Ocasio-Cortez. That's a strong 1-2-3 there, Peter. Jack went with Uncle Bob and Comey. That's pretty much my 1 and 2. We had Leslie went with Uncle Bob. Internet privacy advocate, he went with the skateboarder, Bobby O. Well, you can't go wrong. I mean, Bobby O, really, in a normal week, Bobby O probably would have been a strong contender for the winner this week. He would have been a very strong contender. We haven't even had time to talk about some of the stunts that he's pulled this week. I don't have time to go into them. I'm almost out of time. But well done, IPA, with your pick for Bobby O, the skateboarder. T.W. Wintex went with the rotten Reverend Clinton. You can never go wrong with the rotten Reverend Clinton. Never. Of course, Fern likes the Bug-Eyed Fool. Adam Schiff. Yes, indeed. He's always a strong contender. I believe there's calls for him to step down or at the very least apologize. He's done neither. Definitely a dumbass. Mary went with George Conway. Very well done. Yes, I mean, again, just so many candidates this week. I mean, in a normal week, this is Kellyanne Conway's husband. In a normal week, this guy would have been fighting for top position for this coveted award. But when you got Uncle Bob and Comey and all these other people, it's hard, man. It's very, very difficult. But certainly, Kellyanne's husband absolutely deserves Dumbass of the Week. Dennis went with Uncle Bob, the executioner. Well done, Dennis. I'll try not to bump the table. I'm giving it my best. Let's see. Mona Lisa went with Uncle Bob, the executioner. I think I know who's going to win this week. Carl went with Avenatti, the creepy porn lawyer. Again, in a normal week, Avenatti would have been a shoo-in. It's just there are so many strong contenders, man. What a horse race. Let's see. We had, is it Montag? I think it's Montag. Went with Uncle Bob, the executioner. Wretch Davian. Hey, Wretch, I'm glad that you didn't select me as Dumbass of the Week this week. Fortunately, Wretch Davison went with Rodenstein, and I much prefer Rodenstein for Dumbass of the Week over myself. Thank you very much, Wretch Davian. And, of course, Freddie went with Uncle Bob, the executioner. Did I leave anybody out? Did I leave anybody out? I feel like I'm leaving somebody out. Did I miss somebody? I hope not. If I left you out, I apologize. Kilda, Patty, Rocky, Denise, Jeanette, Joey, Mike. I think I got everybody. Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for your contributions to Dumbass of this week. It was a very tough decision for all of us. I, of course, myself went with Uncle Bob and Comey. So let's now announce the winner for this week's Dumbass of the Week. Number one, first place, and I think just based on just going through this, you probably figured it out right now. And he won pretty overwhelmingly. He took first place. Uncle Bob, the executioner, in first place. And let's see, he had 13 votes. And the second place person here, Comey, the dishonorable James Comey, had 7